Hello, everyone, and welcome to our September webinar. I'm Anne Craybill, the CEO at Art Bridges Foundation, and we are so glad that you are joining us today as we explore many ways our partners across the country are sharing powerful works of American art with their communities. Today's conversation highlights exciting projects that exemplify the spirit of collaboration and impact at the heart of ArtBridge's mission. We are going to begin with a look at the Partner Loan Network and Alejo Benedetti from Crystal Bridges, who's going to speak about Julie Green's The Last Summer, which is a decades-long project that the late artist created, and it joined the museum's collection in late 2024, and now it is available for loan. Then we will hear from Elaine Yao at the Berkeley Art Museum and Pacific Film Archive, who will highlight Routed West, 20th Century African American Quilts in California, which is a traveling exhibition that traces the flow and flourishing of quilts in the context of the Second Great Migration. And we hear it has been one of the best attended exhibitions to date. And then we're going to hear from our own Julia Munn, Assistant Curator at Art Bridges. She's going to talk about a new Artist Spotlight video series that we have to offer for all of you. And then finally, we'll talk with Jasmine DeJacome, Learning and Engagement Manager at Art Bridges. And she's going to share exciting programming updates from our museum partners. But before we get started, I want to give you a little bit of a background about Art Bridges. And if you have heard this before, this spiel, apologies, go ahead and just, introduce yourself in the chat and get to know each other. So as many of you know, Alice Walton created Art Bridges really with this idea of access. And she wanted to make sure that access was at the center of the art museum field. And she hoped, that this was just this idea of education, that it's hope, that it's all of the things that we want. Next slide. So many of you have probably heard of or even visited Crystal Bridges. She built Crystal Bridges in her hometown community of Bentonville, Arkansas. And she did this very purposefully with very little storage because she really just does not believe that art can exist without a viewer. And so I'm sure, as Alejo can attest, there is a very dynamic exhibition program at Crystal Bridges. So this idea of could we take art out of storage and distribute it to art museums across the country, art museums that perhaps don't have large acquisition funds or, don't want to acquire works of art because they face their own storage issues. So we currently, if we could go to the next slide, we currently have the mission. This is the very pragmatic what we do. We deliver access to meaningful experiences with art for personal and community well-being. And we partner with museums to provide strategic and financial support to get American art out of storage and into communities nationwide. At the end of the day, what we're really hoping is that museums work differently with each other, that they dismantle their silos, that they become more collaborative, that art sharing isn't just peer-to-peer, that it's, small museums to large museums to mid-sized museums. Since 2017, we are so proud to say we have over 300 museum partners in our network and growing. We have over 900 projects across the country impacting more than 20 million people. Next slide. And you're going to learn about our two program pillars today with the introduction of some of these projects. So the main way that we fulfill our mission and increase access is the North Star, art sharing. But then for every art sharing initiative we also have grants for community engagement. So learning and engagement projects so that you can activate those works of art in new and innovative ways. Next. Okay, so that is the Art Bridges overview. I am going to just dive right in to the Partner Loan Network. So this is, again, our North Star. We get art out of storage. We share it with communities across the country. These loans are for anywhere from 1 to 2 years. Art Bridges covers all of those typical financial barriers. So the insurance, the crating, the shipping for that art sharing initiative. And then, as I mentioned, we can provide for the partner loan networks up to $25,000 a year in learning and engagement support. So I'm going to turn it over to Alejo, who will talk about the Julie Green Last Supper series. And just so you know, Alejo is the Curator of Contemporary Art at Crystal Bridges Museum of Art, and he is responsible for not only the contemporary art program, but the outdoor sculpture program on the 160 acres now, Alejo, something like that, the big campus.
A very big campus. I think 134. I think you
Okay.
gave us a few extra acres, but yes.
Well,
Very
welcome.
happy. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to get to talk about this work. It's really powerful and important work, and one that we're lucky to have in our collection, and even luckier to be able to send it around the country. So let me pull this up. How are we looking? Everything looks good. So for those who don't know, Julie Green was an artist who passed away in 2021, but one of the biggest projects that they worked on throughout their career was a project called The Last Supper. And in 2023, the museum brought this work into the collection. We were very fortunate to be approached with this opportunity, and the biggest reason for it was because this is important work. This is work that needs to be seen by a whole host of different people around the country. It's very pertinent to conversations that are happening in our nation right now, and so it's one that we are committed to getting out and into different institutions. So for this project in 1999, Julie was sitting at their kitchen table and flipping through the newspaper and saw printed in there the last meal of a prisoner that was executed the day before, and they thought this was sort of a wild thing to print in a newspaper, and actually followed up with first the newspaper and then also with the prison, and asked, why would you print that? Why would you put that out there? And the reason given in both instances was the public wants to know. And capital punishment was a bigger thing that was on Julie's mind. It was something that this felt like such a personal way to remind folks that these are real people. These are people who are going through this the prison system, and who are receiving the death penalty. And so they sat down. They were starting to think through, how should I present this? How do I put a personal face onto this thing that is happening? So they tried a number of different approaches: embroidering these last meals, also doing ledger drawings of these, and ultimately landed on the idea to do these plates, and using found plates, going in and actually illustrating what these final meals were. And started with this color version of it, and then switched to this very sort of classic looking blue on white plates. And Julie starts working on this, and working on it intensely for years. And the approach is similar for each one of these. Well, it's exactly the same for each one of these plates. Going through, listing out when the execution happened, and then also listing out what that person asked for their final meal. And so you get these descriptions that are reproduced here. For example, the German ravioli and chicken dumplings prepared by his mother and prison dietary staff. And in that, you have sort of a peek into these different ways that food connects us, food humanizes us, and it becomes this bigger way to connect with what is otherwise a massive and sort of incomprehensible problem to tackle. So throughout Julie's work on this project, they continue to show this work, and so showing this work in as the project continued to grow. And so you can see 283 plates in 2008, and 2013 was 500 plates, and kept continuing to work on this and adding more plates all along the way. And all of these are again the same approach, the same methodology for filling this out, and for growing this collection of plates. In in 2020, this presentation at the Bellevue Arts Museum, this was actually the final presentation of this work that Julie was still alive for, and it was of 800 plates. And at some point along the way, Julie had this thought. The plan had always been continue doing these plates 50 a year until capital punishment is no longer legal in the United States. It's no longer part of what's happening. Towards the end of Julie's life, they had ovarian cancer and changed the goal a little bit and said, okay, it's going to be until capital punishment is no longer legal in this country, or I reach 1,000 plates. And so in September of 2021, Julie reached 1,000 plates. And so the entirety of that collection is what Crystal Bridges now owns. And I will say that through the partner loan network, the entirety of those 1,000 plates was actually presented, or is currently being presented at Boise Art Museum. This is powerful, impactful. It is a huge undertaking to be able to present all of these individual plates and to get a sense of how the sort of immensity of an undertaking like this, a project like this. This is literal decades of this artist's life trying to shine a light on this very pressing topic. To show this whole project in its entirety takes up about 1,200 square feet. Julie was very specific about how these get presented in rows, alphabetical by state in reverse chronological order, and there are a host of different sort of auxiliary components that are also included and able to be shown alongside the plates. And so those include the first plate that I showed in a previous slide. Then also 2 of these exonerated plates for folks who actually were exonerated from death row. And another really important component, something that Julie always included in these presentations, was a guest book, because Julie often talked about how their work, they would say, I paint to point. And the thought was that to shine a light on this and to create opportunities for conversation. And so something as simple as a guest book became this way for folks to weigh in on this controversial topic, but also a way to provide their own thoughts and insights and responses. And so I've reproduced just a few of them from over the years here. But it is something that continues to happen, and when the work continues to be presented, this becomes a forum for conversation for folks. If you are looking at this and you're thinking, wow, this would be something that would be really incredible for our institution to show, but you're questioning a little bit, are we going to be able to fix it? Are we going to be able to present it? I want to show that this is at Boise Art Museum. It's spread across 2 different galleries for the plates, and then an additional gallery in the middle for some of that auxiliary material. We want this work to be shown. Crystal Bridges, Art Bridges, we are happy to work with you to find a way that this fits into the space. We want to be collaborators in this. If you also are looking at this and you're saying there's just simply no way that we could show all 1,000 plates, Julie also was thinking about that and laid out a plan of how this could be broken up into sort of 3 smaller groupings. I think the ideal is to get the 1,000 because you really see the weight of it all. But if that's just not realistic for your institution, we still want to have the conversation. So if you are thinking about this, if you're interested in this, the current show will continue through next year. It will then go on to an additional venue, but then starting in October of 2028. This is available through the Partner Loan Network. If you would like it for a year, for 2 years, contact Art Bridges. Crystal Bridges, Art Bridges, we are happy to work with you and to try to send it to your institution. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Alejo. There is a question in the chat, so I thought I would go ahead and answer that. It says, would you consider lending artwork to a hospital-based gallery? Yes, we would consider it. So the best way to do that is to reach out to our team. We can put in the chat our email contact. to do that. As you know, we have a huge art and wellness initiative, or maybe you don't know, but we have a huge art and wellness initiative as part of the ecosystem here with all of the entities that Alice Walton supports and has created. So we are going to transition. Oh, and I also just wanted to mention, please go ahead and use the chat if you want. You can introduce yourselves and continue to ask questions. We're going to transition to traveling exhibitions. The way our traveling exhibitions program works is we really like to partner with institutions that don't have traveling exhibitions departments. You put a lot of work, a lot of intellectual labor into these exhibitions, and they should be shared more broadly with, other institutions across the country. So Art Bridges provides the originating organization with a flat fee, depending on the size, for developing the exhibition. And then our team works with you to help find venues and manages the tour for you. So it's not going to be a huge burden to your registration team. And then we go ahead and provide the borrowing institution anywhere from 20 to 70% costs towards the shared costs. So it becomes a really, really affordable traveling exhibition. In addition, we have learning and engagement funds for that. So I am excited to introduce you to Elaine Yao, PhD Associate Curator and Academic Liaison at Berkeley Art Museum and Pacific Film Archive. She is going to be sharing the exhibition Routed West, which is this incredible, I learned about it when I first went out to Berkeley. This is just incredible collection of over 100 quilts by nearly 90 individuals. And it's primarily women with ties to the San Francisco Bay Area, but it also threads the needle between Black people's historical movements and their quilts to tell stories of collective care, resilience, and creative ingenuity. So Elaine, I'm going to turn it over to you so you can share with the group why this is a must-borrow exhibition.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Anne, and to the Art Bridges team for this invitation. This entire show has really been an adventure for me, and I'm glad that there's the possibility that it will continue to be seen and to engage so many more audiences. So I'll move right ahead. As Anne recently shared, Rooted West traces the flow and flourishing of quilts in the context of the Second Great Migration and to California. And those decades are marked really between 1940 and 1970 for the purposes of the exhibition. It features 100 quilts from the BAMPFA collection. And of course, for the sake of the tour, I'm currently working with the team to create a more compacted checklist. It is about, it fills our main gallery, which is 10,000 square feet. But I believe the version we are working on is slated for 6,000 square feet. But I will share some images of how we did the presentation here at BAMPFA and share a little bit more about the larger context for the exhibition. As you can see on my slide, it is the first group exhibition drawn from the African American Quilt Collection at BAMPFA itself, which is sort of this historic bequest of over 3,000 objects. And again, I will share towards the end of my presentation what that has meant for us as an institution and why especially this opportunity to share this collection through a partnership with Art Bridges has been so meaningful just because of the scale of the collections we are now stewarding. Oh, and yes, finally, it has been one of our highest attended exhibitions, and we are just into the first 4 months out of a 6-month run. So it's pretty tremendous and really exciting for us. So I wanted to share, and I hope you saw in that opening slide, we did have a map to sort of ground visitors into the precise geographies that we're talking about here. And I'm showing you one of the spreads from the exhibition catalog, where I hope you can see highlighted all of the counties and names of the quilt makers and quilt keepers in their families. What you're seeing are birthplaces and places of residence in the South. And so you can see this concentration in East Texas, Northern Louisiana, Southern Arkansas. And then there's this companion map, which we tried to visualize where these artists eventually landed in California. And you can see there's this great concentration within Berkeley, Oakland, and also in Richmond, just north of where we are in Berkeley. And this is in large part due to sort of the obvious, which is the racial terror of Jim Crow segregation, which was really prompting so many Black migrants to leave. But in the context of California history, there was also this pull factor of World War II defense industries. So I'm just going to highlight the Oakland dry docks here in the shipyard near the different naval outposts. In Richmond, it was the site to the Kaiser shipyards, one of the largest shipbuilding operations in all of the U.S. during World War II, and sort of secondary sites within San Francisco and then further up north in Vallejo and Port Chicago. But I love this grounding because it really gives you a sense of the regional interconnectedness that these quilts embody. And I think for a lot of audiences who might be surprised that so much of the social fabric of the Bay Area in California consists of Black Southern culture. So not just quilts, but we're also talking foodways and music and religious practice. So the exhibition itself proceeds across 5 sections, sort of following this trajectory of migration, which is to say we begin in the South and really a grouping that highlights the diversity of quilt making practices and traditions that were eventually brought out of the South. So this is sort of, our grounding area where cultural values, styles, and patterns will sort of echo later on in the show. So many of these quilts, as I mentioned, so the show itself encompasses the 20th century. Many of these quilts are dated between the 1920s through to the 1950s. I will just highlight, though, the 2 quilts on the wall seen on the right, sort of right over here. While not the oldest quilts in the show, these 2 quilts were made by the 2 eldest quilt makers, Monin Brown, Hattie Mitchell, 2 sisters who were born enslaved in the 1850s, who spent the entirety of their lives in domestic servitude to a wealthy white banking family out of Macon, Georgia. But those 2 quilts feel especially important because they were made explicitly in this racial caste system. And so there's more about the story that we have in terms of how these 2 women's lives and these quilts were deeply engaged in conversation with their white employers. But here you see, I think, on the slide, a variety of styles, pattern-based quilts that were very much a part of the national visual culture and material culture in the U.S. Of course, some improvisational quilts interpreting traditional patterns. Here's a double wedding ring, and then quilts more made from work clothes that are most obviously speaking to a culture of creative reuse and repurposing. From there, we are leaving the South. This section that I've entitled Carried and Kept brings together quilts that were all made in the Southern United States, but were brought out of the South and to California, either by the quilt makers themselves or members of their family who inherited them. And this is just to give you a sense of how we've installed it here, some on slant boards, some on curving platforms. And the curves themselves were really intentional to evoke the appearance of a bed without being so explicit, and giving visitors a real variety of ways in which quilts could have existed and were handled in everyday life. So that also includes our choice to hang a few quilts folded on racks. But thematically speaking, sort of this more utilitarian presentation of the quilt is very much related to the storytelling that this section tries to convey. So in this pairing, for example, we have a quilt, this colorful string block quilt by Willia Etta Graham, who was born in East Texas. She was the one in her family to actually make the migration journey and came to Oakland in 1946. This particular quilt, we know that she made a handful of those blocks. in Texas, but finished the quilt in California. And she brought with her the quilt that you see on the rack, made by her mother. Okay, I'm going to go really quickly. Okay, more quilts. The next section, Tending Generations. This was really special because it's an opportunity for us to highlight a strength of the collection, namely multiple generations of quilt makers in a single family. And just on this slide, we have 3 generations shown here and another 3 generations of quilt makers shown here. And again, the stories of migration and return migration to parts of the South is sort of captured in these individual family stories. I did just want to highlight here, this represents 3 generations, and this particular quilt that we have draped on the form is a loan from the 3rd generation of quilt maker represented in this family, Ophelia Parker, who I got in touch with as part of the outreach process, and she lent us this quilt that she made, and she resides not too far from Oakland in a city called San Leandro. In the next section, Rooted West, again, sort of the play on the title here, but these are all quilts dating from 1970 to 2000, a period when many quilt makers of this migrant generation had left the workforce. They had either retired, are much older in age, or perhaps for health reasons are less mobile, and so sort of reinstantiate quilt making as a practice in an urban context. So many of these quilts come from Berkeley, Oakland, Richmond, others from Fresno in the Central Valley, and a smaller representation from San Diego. Just a shout out to one of Arkansas and California's own Rosie Lee Tompkins. Rosie Lee Tompkins has 5 works in this exhibition, and this felt important on the heels of the 2020 single person retrospective in order to place her in a much larger national context for African American quilt making. And then lastly, a living tradition. This section felt particularly crucial, but also meaningful because it brings the histories of the BAMPFA collection into the present. This particular section, which you see sort of begins on the dark gray walls, consists entirely of loans from the African American Quilt Guild of Oakland. This is a group of women who I've gotten to know over the course of this project and who I regard as really the contemporary standard bearers and tradition bearers for this tradition. This particular section was curated through an open call that I extended to the Guild. And I think in the current iteration of the Art Bridges checklist, these quilts are not slated to travel, but this is really an opportunity for venues to look locally and outside their doors to see how this kind of inclusion and recognition of this popular art form can be a part of this larger dialogue. And I just wanted to show just a few images from our opening weekend, which I think really made the present spirit of inclusion and spirit of the exhibition in terms of family-based storytelling really apparent. And so on the left, you have an image of members of the Guild standing next to a quilt made by one of their former presidents. And then on the right, Juanita McFall, seen in the pink shirt and sneakers, with her family in front of her grandmother's quilt. Miranda, I know I'm a little bit over. Would you like me to just zoom through what I have left or just sort of close here?
Zoom through, we're okay.
We're okay? Okay, I will.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll just go for maybe 2 more minutes. Thanks for your patience. Okay, and then another image. I blasted through that slide, but in the intergenerational section, we had featured 3 of the living quilt makers who are still with us and in the show in BAMPFA's collection. And we were able to bring them out to California for opening weekend. So who you see here is Laverne Brackens, one of the elders of the family at 98. She made the trip out with her family from Texas. Sherry Ann Bird, her daughter, also in Texas, but importantly, the critical link to California. She and her husband Curtis raised their family over the course of 20 years in Richmond, and that's where she really began her quilt making practice as an adult, and very importantly for BAMPFA's history, made the connection to Eli Leon, the donor and collector. And then their daughter, Bayra Bird, 3rd generation. And so you see here just this beautiful this beautiful family, granddaughters, cousins here. And what you see, this was a special study center session, what I called a quilt reunion, where we were able to pull even more quilts from the collection that this family had made, members of this family had made, and that they had not seen in over 30 years. Sort of this, the spirit of outreach and kind of bleeds into accessibility, some accessibility considerations. So throughout the show, not for every quilt, but for about 10, we had our staff create these custom touch labels, again, to sort of bridge the divide between the art world, or sort of the museum space rather, and where we do not want audience members and visitors to touch the artworks, but simply to acknowledge too the functionality and tactility that so many of these artworks invite and that are inherent in their materials. And so we created these touch labels that visitors were invited to even pull off the wall, handle, they can tug at the seams, look at the backs. And I think this was a really successful component of our show. Of course, there is a catalog accompanying it that goes in depth onto individual quilt stories and biographies that's been available for purchase too. For larger context, I'm just going to flash these slides really quickly. This show is sort of really the conversation starter for BAMPFA that's connected to the larger care and stewardship of this massive bequest that I had mentioned at the top of the presentation. So there you see the numbers, over 3,000 quilts, and this is what our storage space looks like right now. And I think a critical component to the donation was also Eli Leon's archive, which has been so critical in actually understanding both provenance and the history of the individual quilt makers. This is how it all began. This is what the scale looks like. And we've been undergoing we're in the middle of an 8-year initiative to conserve the entirety of the collection. And so there is really this, once the quilts have been sort of materially stabilized, treated for any, to mitigate any risk of pest infestation or mold, it is something that simply begs to be shared. And so we're just really excited that this Art Bridges partnership can sort of lay the foundation for what that could look like moving forward. And of course, the press has been really tremendous, not least of which too is sort of our own ups and downs with federal grant making. But that said, the coverage of what this history has meant and what it means, I think, in broadening out art histories of the United States, in highlighting under-recognized stories, and I think telling stories of resilience, of community survival, and of family, and of collective care are things that I've found audiences really hungry for, and we're just really thrilled that this collection can help bring that forward. Thank you all for all of that, for listening.
Thanks so much, Elaine. We're just so privileged to be able to partner with you and share this exhibition. And it seems like there's so many incredible opportunities for programming. And so I wanted to turn it over to Jasmine, who is going to talk a little bit about what's happening in her department at Art Bridges and how Art Bridges can help support our partners with learning and engagement.
Hi, thanks, Anne, for that introduction. As Anne said, my name is Jasmine DeJacme. I'm the Learning and Engagement Manager at Art Bridges. And in my time with you all, I'm just going to share a little bit about learning and engagement, and then also talk about how the Julie Green work that Alejo introduced to us could be activated through learning and engagement, and talk about a few of our recent partner projects that we have funded and have completed recently. So to start, our mission in learning and engagement is to support innovation and creative risk-taking in the field of museum education. So we serve as thought partners in activating works loaned through the collection, partner loan network, and traveling exhibitions art sharing arms. And not only does the L&E team ideate and act as creative collaborators, we also assist in the application process for those learning and engagement awards to make those programs, events, and activations possible. I'm going to share a little bit about these awards and how our different funding was leveraged as we go on. So, as Alejo mentioned, Julie Green's The Last Supper is available for placement through our Partner Loan Network program. And I want to share a way in which this work could be programmed to serve an often overlooked potential audience and to tie directly to Julie's themes. So The Last Supper lends itself as the creative catalyst for offsite programs for individuals who are incarcerated, as kind of like the creative sorry, I just said that, the creative catalyst for this. So organizations across the country and across the globe use the arts as a means of growth, skill development, and healing. And these organizations like Julie Green center the humanity and dignity of individuals who are incarcerated. So this potential program takes inspiration from organizations like Rehabilitation Through the Arts in New York, the Prison Art program by the Aldrich Contemporary Art Museum in Connecticut, and a visual thinking strategies program that's in partnership between the South Dakota Art Museum and the South Dakota Penitentiaries. So this would bring The Last Supper into a carceral environment with a trained museum educator and or an art therapist. So thinking about how to make this happen, Art Bridges funds high-resolution reproductive images or approved reproductions of individual or groups of works, so potentially like bringing in a reproduction of one or two of the plates, or a video of the installation. And thinking of this as a multi-visit program, creating relationship between museum and the participating group, and fostering relationships between those participating who are all incarcerated individuals. And so guiding conversations using tenets of social emotional learning and exploration of emotional response to Green's work as a starting point in this multi-visit phase, and then capping it with an art activity that could take many forms, really highlighting the voice and choice and self-representation for individuals who are incarcerated. So having a chance to make and then present a visual work of art or a performance piece, whether that be a dance, a song, or written word, all of that fundable by learning and engagement awards to make that happen, and to create those connections. So just one example of how this work could be activated, but the possibilities are myriad, and the learning and engagement team would be excited to ideate with borrowers of this powerful work. And just wanted to give that as kind of like an intro into how we think about learning and engagement and engaging with audiences and new audiences, before now moving from what was a potential program to programs that have been funded. The first here is the Baltimore Museum of Art's activation of 2 quilts by Stephen Towns for 2 distinct audiences. So the Baltimore Museum put on a school family night where this pilot program invited families to experience the museum through the eyes of their youngest learners. And the theme of the evening revolved around Towns' works, exploring the artist process and the idea of recreation and how artists bring light to forgotten or erased stories. To reduce barriers to transportation, Baltimore Museum provided shuttles from the school, and as families arrived, they received a program booklet with activities to be inclusive of younger and older siblings. and to encourage whole family learning experiences. They visited the galleries for a conversation around one of town's artworks that was co-led by the students and an educator from the museum. And then in the studio, they took family photos and participated in an art activity exploring their own stories. And then the evening culminated with a dinner provided by a local caterer, bringing the families together to engage with one another. Also, the Baltimore Museum put on at their Lexington Market offsite location, which is used for workshops and talks and drop-in activities, an activation dedicated for an entire month to the ideas drawn from town's works. So allowing participants to engage with what they learn about Baltimore histories while exploring their own histories. And the month featured a weekly series of workshops created in partnership with the Afro, which is the longest running African-American family-owned newspaper, to explore archival material related to recreation and art-making activities inspired by town's works. And then these drop-in activities and prompts were offered daily so that visitors could explore and add to a zine that was being created. So for this project, learning and engagement funds were used for honoraria and contract labor, transportation, supplies, and printing to support those programs. And this is an activation of one of or two of the works from Art Bridges' collection. And another innovative program I want to share is the Bruce Museum's activation of an internally curated show at Art Bridges, Metal the Mirror, which is available through our traveling exhibitions. So the Bruce Museum relaunched and expanded its Bruce Experience program, offering in-gallery performances for the first time, and 3 new engagements paired the Noguchi sculptures, which are what makes up the Metal of the Mirror exhibition, with Japanese poetry, folk dance, and music composition. So in what's featured here was one program which was a dance performance and workshop with the Japanese Folk Dance Institute of New York. And during the day, the Japanese Folk Dance Institute led a family-friendly workshop, specifically on a weekend day when families could enjoy other intergenerational activities that were happening at the museum. And then during the evening, as part of these new Bruce Experiences program, a performing and teaching group from the Japanese Folk Dance Institute gave an in-gallery tour and then led a dance workshop for the public. And the performance was recorded and made available for visitors to enjoy afterwards. And so for this, really highlighting some audiences around the Bruce Museum in Greenwich that they were hoping to bring in again, and using some of that honoraria and supplies to make this happen. And then one last program supported through a Learning and Engagement Award, which was used to activate 2 of our partner loan network groupings from the National Academy of Design, was at the Westmoreland Museum of American Art. So the Westmoreland reimagined their gallery spaces as the locus for play with their art maze for multi-generational audiences. And this art maze was an interactive adventure where visitors not only navigated their way through this intricate path, but they were also invited to pause and appreciate these mural-like paintings created by local artists. And along the way, they encountered various challenges and games that were designed to engage and entertain. And when visitors engaged with or first reached the art maze, they received a sheet of those challenges and activities to complete, and then we're exploring not only the maze but the galleries at the museum afterwards as well. Next slide. So to learn more about programs like these and how learning and engagement funding can support those ideas that you all might have, please visit our Idea Center on our website. The Idea Center is continuously growing with more partner projects, which we hope will serve as inspiration. And if anyone has additional questions about learning and engagement, please reach out to us and we'd be happy to answer them and to connect.
Jasmine, thank you so much. It's always just so great to hear what innovative creative work our partners are doing in learning and engagement spaces. So next, we are going to turn it over to Julia Moon, who is going to share new content that we have created for our very own collection that you can use either just, to learn more about our collection or if you have a work that you've borrowed from us. So Julia, I'll toss it to you.
Thank you so much, Anne. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning into the September webinar. As Anne kindly introduced, my name is Julia Moon. I'm the assistant curator here at Art Bridges, and I'm really excited to talk about a new project that we've started here. But to provide some context, this time last year, the curatorial team started to think about new ways to create resources for our partners. Typically, with each loan from the collection, we strive to have an object package to send alongside the works. These object packages are full of written interpretive materials. So typically 5 documents, one, a general label copy that partners can use to display with the works, to a biography that provides a brief overview of the artist and especially highlights the connections that the artist might have with other artists in the Art Bridges collection. 3, object essays that provide additional research or contextual information. 4, bibliographies that cite specific areas where the work has been mentioned or general guidance on which resources to look at. And then lastly, a document on the provenance and exhibition history that tracks which partners or broader institutions have borrowed the work. But at Art Bridges, we are in a wonderful position to be able to collect works made in the past year or made by understudied living artists. So we started to think about how we can make our interpretive materials more contemporaneously relevant and connected with artist voices. So we wanted to conduct interviews of these artists so that they could talk specifically about their works that we have in the collection, especially if they have never had the chance to do so before. And so we've been collaborating with Pittsburgh-based producer and Jamie Ng to film these interviews. And Jamie has been so wonderful and has traveled to studios and museums across the country to speak with these artists. She's also been able to travel to specific landmarks that are tied to certain works, which you'll get a glimpse of what I mean later. But she's really helped synthesize these footage into cohesive videos. So this has been a really great collaborative effort to platform what artists would like to contextualize about their works, their practices, and ultimately have that agency to have a hand in shaping their own legacies. And this project has been particularly important for us because it's another form of access that we want to provide to our partners, not only to the works, but also to the artists whose experiences have informed these works. So over the past year, we've been able to conduct 10 interviews. We are so excited to announce that today we are launching 4 videos on our YouTube channel. We have Sharif Bey, William T. Williams, Mel Chen, and Jiyoung Che. And we wanted to share at least one of these videos with you during this webinar. So please take a look at Jiyoung Che's interview, where she talks about her work in our collection, Journey to the Cosmic Womb, filmed at her studio in Houston.
My name is Jiyoung Che. I am an artist, an interdisciplinary artist. I work in a variety of media, and I'm very much interested in world building. When I was young, I saw a trailer for a film called Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and it was the first time that I had really thought about the idea of humans and art living together, the idea of living art. And when I watched all the names of all the animators at the end of the film, I thought, these are adults that didn't have to put away their creativity. And that really excited me. When I was going to undergrad at Massachusetts College of Art and Design, most of my work was all about this kind of yearning and desire to find my birth family. Then I went to Korea and I found my birth family, and it was incredible. Like it was amazing to meet them and to build this relationship that still is going on today. But then when I got to graduate school, I kind of panicked and I thought, well, what am I going to paint about now? I kind of created this imaginary world growing up, kind of like a coping mechanism for the trauma of being separated from my birth family and my culture and language and all these things. And so I ran with it. I decided I want to build on the psychic landscape. I want to mine the things I was creating as a child and help them grow up, and to see these characters and these ideas start to face my adult kind of questions about the world. It has been a really constructive way for me to kind of play with all of my feelings, almost like journaling through paint, so then I can go out into the world and really be present. So instead of it being about escapism or fantasy, it's actually kind of a workshop to be able to work through those feelings of fear and those moments of conflict from the past. I always loved the idea of the giant-sized comics, and I thought, what if I could make a giant-sized comic that actually felt as big as it did when I was a child? You just see these splash pages and the beautiful color and the cover, and you want to know what's happening inside. So, I mean, there's a number of different characters, but I think what's most important is that people are able to take all of these different parts in and then become like a child who's trying to put together a narrative or a story that makes sense to them. You know, you see in the painting all this drama and these characters struggling, and there's a character rising up, pleasure vision, and she's kind of emerging and realizing just how beautiful her powers are. So there's the transformations happening and people joining together to see what their powers can do. I'd say that there are aspects of it that almost play out like puzzle pieces. When you look at the piece, it's many layers of collage and pieces that sometimes almost connect, sometimes they overlap. And so I feel that the Cosmic Womb, it's the one place where I can have my Koreanness and my Americanness and all my memories of both places be together as one. The interplanetary motto is "Have faith, for you've always been loved," and I hope that that resonates with people. I feel like it was really important for me to put that on there with all of this drama and calamity happening in this piece, that we can move forward, journey forward in understanding ourselves, and to know that we are loved.
Thanks so much for sharing that, Julia.
Yeah, we really hope that everyone enjoyed that video, and if you've seen this work before, we hope that like it illuminated new elements of the work to you, or it's inspired you to look into her work more. But I'm also excited to share a list of the remaining 6 videos currently in production. We have Dwayne Slick, Hardina Pindell, Nora Naranjo Morris, Eddie Whitehorse, Kay Walking Stick, Takako Yamaguchi. And so we will, of course, announce and share widely when the next batch of videos will be launched on YouTube. But to conclude today, I'm excited to let you know that we're also not finished. Like, this is an ongoing project. We are currently reaching out to additional artists, and to give you a sneak peek into what the next year holds. We have been in conversations with these 4 artists and hope to be able to start filming soon. So please stay tuned. Thank you all for joining us today, and don't forget to watch the other interviews.
Great. Well, thanks to everybody on the panel. Thanks to everybody that joined us for today's webinar. Stay tuned for emails and some surveys along with a recording of today's webinar. And we hope to see you next time. Take care.